I'm Greg Giuliano. I'm an executive coach, organizational change consultant, and author. I believe leaders have the power to shape the future and change people's lives. I also believe people who challenge the status quo and go beyond usual and ordinary are rare. They're willing to go to the edge and push farther, over and over again. When I find these ultra leaders, I love to talk with them. In each episode, I talk with ultra leaders to learn how they do what they do and how they keep growing as leaders. I promise you a full dose of ultra leadership from other ultra leaders just like you in every conversation. We're at the edge of another episode. Let's jump in. Welcome to another edition of Ultra Leadership. We're glad you could be here today. I'm excited about today's conversation. My guest today is Sabby Ray. Sabby is head of insurance operations at Corebridge Financial. As head of insurance operations, he manages operations, controls, third-party administration, and related vendor governance for Corebridge. He's also an officer of American General Life Insurance Company, U.S. Life, and VLIC. He has held a number of senior roles at AIG, including managing claims and operations in Asia Pacific and serving as CEO of the Consumer Finance Group in Asia. He leverages his diverse experience leading complex global projects, technology, and operations to enhance business operations and improve the customer experience. Welcome, Sabby. I'm really glad you could be here. And I love that last piece, and I really want to start there, that enhancing business operations, improving the customer experience, because that's really the goal for all of us in organizations is how do we make the organization more effective on behalf of the customer? So thank you for being here. And I would just like to get your general thoughts about that. What does that look like in day-to-day practice for you of making the organization, making people more effective on behalf of the customers? And then we can dive into some of the specifics because you have so much experience around leading people and teams and helping them be better, especially as they step into leadership maybe for the first time. So I'm going to shut up now. Welcome, Sabby. I'm just so excited. So welcome. Thank you. I'm really glad you're here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the warm welcome, Greg. I appreciate that. And now just to add, yes, I was part of AIG Corebridge, which I recently retired from that role a couple of months back, but I'm fresh from that. So I've got all the experience and knowledge to kind of share with the team here. So yes, I think we are here in the business of serving our customers. And our customers here in the insurance industry is coming in to either to file a claim and they want a claim, or they want to withdraw from their annuities, or they want to pay some of the bills using the money from their account. And what the customer is expecting is a seamless transaction, a simple way for them to get their needs fulfilled. What we try to do, what we have been striving to do is three things. One, we want our employees to be empathetic to the customer, because many a times when a customer is coming to us for a claim, they have lost one of their loved ones. And so, how we deal with the customer, how we answer the customer's needs and questions, there is an empathetic approach, and we strongly ensure that our teams who are facing these customers are empathetic. Secondly, we try to make sure that we are simplifying the processes as much as possible for the customer, because at the time of need, a customer would hate to go through 10 different steps of process to get their needs fulfilled. So how do I simplify that? And third is, how do I empower the people in the front line to be able to fulfill the needs of the customer without even having to go through 5 levels of approval? So that has been our mantra of trying to empower the front line, make them more empathetic, simplify the process, use our digital technology, and be able to do as much as possible quickly and simplify it. Not that we have been successful all along. I mean, there has been the history of the insurance industry. It has come through a lot of acquisitions, a lot of technology, but there is a need to further enhance the technology. But at this point of time, we want to simplify the process from a customer standpoint. So at the end of the day, we want the customer experience to be good, flawless, And we strive to do that. I won't say that we have been perfect every time, but we strive to do that.
So I love that, right? So empathize, simplify, and empower. So that we deliver an end-to-end experience for the customer that is as simple as possible and meeting them where they are in their journey and giving them what they're hoping for, right? Delivering what we promise. It seems to me that in creating that experience for our customers, that if you're leading a team, that it's the same thing. That my job as the leader is empathize, make it as simple as possible for my people to engage and do their work and empower them.
Exactly right. So as we build our teams, that is exactly what are the kind of leaders we look for. We look for leaders who are problem solvers, who are looking at from the customer angle, trying to solve a customer problem, being able to not they have to do the work themselves, but how do we get the team around them, empower them, work together to problem solve? And that means that many a times we don't promote people or we don't hire who are like more individual contributors trying to do everything by their own. They should be playing as a team. They have to collaborate across teams, because the way a finance industry is organized, or the insurance industry is organized, is by a lot of sub teams. So you have to collaborate against the sub teams to be able to deliver the customer promise, to deliver the customer need, to satisfy the customer. So we want servant leaders. We want leaders who are working with the team, who are empathetic, who are authentic leaders, who are transparent, who can work with the team, who are learning new things, who will not hesitate to say, sorry, I don't know, I need help. Can you please help me? I need to fulfill this customer's such and such need. We can't do it. Can you help, or can somebody in your team help? And that raising the hand and being able to help, thinking about the greater good of the customer, is what we look for.
So let's say that somebody's joined your team and they interviewed really well and they used all those words. They go, oh yeah, this is on paper, and in the interview they're in a complete agreement with you, and then something's off when they get it. How do you, as a leader, when you recognize that the person isn't in congruence with the culture that you're trying to keep on your team, how do you have those conversations? Because I find that a lot of leaders at every level, the conversations and the work with their team that they put off the most are those conversations about there's a performance gap, and there's something that the way that the person is behaving isn't congruent with the values and the culture of the team. So how have you handled those situations in your career?
We have this continuous feedback. I mean, I strongly believe in a continuous feedback. And it's not like end of the year appraisal that you say, hey, you know what, you failed in such and such thing in the month of January. 12 months down the line, they have forgotten. It doesn't make sense.
Doesn't help at all.
Doesn't help at all. So we try to have that feedback. I tend to have a meeting with my directs, every one of them, every week. We catch up on a bunch of things. We talk transactional items. We sometimes talk strategic items. We sometimes talk feedback. They tell me stuff which they have seen me perform, which they do not like, or they don't understand why I behaved certain way, or I did certain, or I made certain decisions. So it's a very candid conversation. We do it one-on-one with every individual every week. Religiously, I would do that. And it's not me. It's many of my peer group also do that. I mean, it's in our culture, in our company, we try to build a culture where we have this open dialogue, open conversation, where we have this feedback, two-way feedback. I love the two-way feedback. I would also like to get a feedback from my team to say, hey, you know what? Can you please, explain this? We didn't understand. Or why did you make the decision? We didn't understand the big picture. What was the rationale behind that? Maybe I didn't explain, or maybe I explained it, but it was not clear. But we have these conversations. And the same token, to answer your question, somebody who joined, who had all these lovely words, they come in, and I see that they did something which was, let's say, not empathetic enough. I would call it out. I would share with them. I would say, look, this is what I saw, or I heard, or someone mentioned to me, but I would be very candid with that individual. And then we give the time for the person to kind of improve. And many a times the individual will come back and tell me, look, you mentioned to me about this a month ago. I have changed, or I have done this. I feel good that they really heard, they paid attention, and they really kind of improve on that. So it's like a continuous improvement. So by the time we come to the year and we do a performance review, many of the things have been closed or have been fixed, but there are always some bigger areas of improvement or certain opportunities to kind of focus on. We have these conversations in the year end, but it's never a surprise because we have these every week, every
Yeah.
week calls.
I just love hearing you say that. Actually, I was just talking with somebody the other day about the antiquated nature of the annual or even the quarterly performance review, because we should be coaching and giving feedback all the time. So that, from my standpoint, I'd love to get your take on this. I don't like performance reviews because A, they look backwards, and that doesn't help me a lot, especially if and the frequency, that if it's once a year, it's just totally meaningless. And so what you're describing in terms of the way that you engage with your teams and have your one-on-ones with people is you've got a team that doesn't need a manager, it needs a coach, that you're coaching them all the time. What are you working on? What are you trying to get better at? Here's feedback for you. See you next week. And that's very different style of leading a team.
Yeah, and I consider myself as a coach, as a servant leader, someone there to help the team. I have empowered my team. I love to empower my team. I would like them to take the lead. I would like to define the North Star. I would like to define the strategy. I would like to define where we are going and how we would like to go there. But I empowered them at the end of the day to do it. But while they are doing it, they would need that feedback. They would need the coaching. They have questions. They have, many times why, what are we doing and when are we doing? And they come back to me for that. But my goal and the way I manage a team is through delegation and through empowerment. Now, there are times when an individual is not able to perform for different reasons, not their PTO, sick, or whatever it could be, that there's a gap in the organization, we have not filled it, where I would jump in, roll up my sleeve to do that part of the work because I don't have that leader in that role. But otherwise, the approach I strongly believe is to get the next set of leaders to come up. I need to empower them. I need to make sure that they are able to make the decision. I need to define the North Star. I need to define them the roadmap of where we are going, but they should be able to execute.
Yeah. So if I'm coming onto your team, there's a lot of people listening who fall into these categories. You're going to promote me, and I'm a first-time leader. You're going to give me a team of people. I've never led a team of people before. I might be great at something, but now you're asking me to lead a team, or I'm stepping up in leadership from leading a team of individual contributors. Now I'm going to be managing other managers. And what would you tell me as I was stepping into either of those roles?
Yeah, that's interesting because we tend to face this problem in our organization, and we have been kind of challenged to that. I'll give you an example. We had, let's say, a person who was, let's say, a software developer and a member of a team of, say, 7 individuals. Suddenly, that one of them is now promoted to be the manager. Now, given they were very good in their role, when they become a manager, it's difficult for them to let go of the work because they feel that they know how to do that job better than the team members, and that's why they were promoted. And the coaching at that stage is, yes, you were good, and yes, you were promoted because we realized your leadership potential, and so we have promoted you to be the team leader of the team. But how you empower, how you delegate the work, how do you look at the whole piece of work? How do we plan? How you delegate? How you manage? How do you follow up? The role of a manager is what we enhance, and we let that person let go of the craving to get into the keyboard and start coding because, hey, I was a good coder. I became a promoter. I know how to do it better than this guy. But listen, we have made you as a manager. We want your team to do well and to become like you in future. So you let them go. So that coaching is a very different coaching. Now, the next jump where I have seen or we have experienced is when a manager is now going to manage multiple managers,
Right.
or a manager of a team, or you're promoting them to a manager of a team they have never managed before. So, for example, I have been a software developer and I've been a manager of my unit, and I now get promoted. to managing a team of, say, operations. I've never done operations. I don't know how a transaction is processed. I've only managed technology. I know how to code. I know how to manage a technology team. Suddenly, I'm managing a department I've never managed or managers I've never managed. So I think it was important in that stage for the leader to understand what are their own strengths and their weakness, get to know about themselves, understand what are the strengths and weaknesses of the team, understand who does what and how the work can get distributed. Because at that stage, you can't roll up your sleeve and say, hey, I've got a weakness in this transaction. Let me go ahead and do it because I've never done it.
Right.
So it is understanding your team, understanding the strengths and weaknesses of your team, understanding how the big picture of what you're trying to solve for. Here in an operations world, you're trying to support the customer. What do the customers need? What does the customer journey looks like? How do you simplify? What are the big problems you're solving for? And what are the strengths and weaknesses of your team? Who do you rely on that? So it's understanding your teams, understanding yourself, understanding where the strengths and weaknesses are. What's the problem you're trying to solve for? It's a different skill set. We're trying to train the managers to be much more open, much more a collaborator, much more understanding their own strengths and weaknesses, the team strengths and weaknesses, while solving the problem of the customer. So it is a different level of training, a different level of coaching or mentoring versus when an individual contributor is suddenly becoming a manager of a unit.
Yeah, that's is awesome. It reminds me of Ram Charan's great book, The Leadership Pipeline. He talks about what should be your focus and what are the skills that you need at different levels of leadership and management in an organization. So the first time leader, your view and your skill set is different than if you're managing managers or you're looking at you're leading a whole function or enterprise level. So, and what you're saying really echoes a lot of the great messages in that terrific book.
That's right. That's exactly right. I mean, at the end of the day, everybody wants to succeed. We want individuals to succeed. We want the leaders to succeed. So, how do we empower them to be able to lead a group of individuals, a group of managers from different parts? And they have never done that before.
Yeah.
So, I think their bosses need to spend more time. It's the coaching. Every leader needs a coaching. I mean, every leader needs,
I love that you said that. Every leader needs a coach.
Every leader needs a coach. I mean, everyone needs a, Greg. But to be very honest, I think that our jobs have been to kind of grow the organization, grow the people, grow so that they are able to go to the next level of leadership. Because at the end of the day, I mean, the organization survives with the people.
Well, I think you already answered this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So throughout your career, how have you kept growing as a leader? And how would you encourage other folks in your organization to take on their own growth and development journey?
So the way I have grown is in my career, I have changed roles numerous times. I have been a software developer. I have been an operations person. I've run product development. I've done M&A. I've run operations. Again, I've done re-engineering. I've run businesses. I've done different roles. And I think a couple of things which I have always done in my life is whenever I was put into a new role, I always try to learn new things. I was always open to learning new things, fast learning. I had managers who allowed me to try and fail, which was great. And so I never hesitated to be in the deep end of the pool in areas which I had never done. So there was a time in my life when I was a technology guy, and the next thing I was in a product development in a banking world, which is completely different. But I think that what I learned in the process was I could roll up my sleeves, learn new things, didn't get scared of failing, and also most important was building network. I think important to build network within the organization. People get to know you so that you understand where the openings are, where are the opportunities are, and what you can take as the next step. So along my career of whatever 30 plus years, I've been in two different organizations, but I've done too many different roles. All that because I was willing to take new things. Somebody said, would you mind doing this? Never say no. Jump into it.
I love the fact that you talk about networking just to have relationships with other leaders to learn from them. And I think that's something that folks today, as we're in a hybrid work environment, there's a danger that they show up and they talk about the work, but they don't engage with people. They're not having those conversations in the hallway the way that they used to, where you can learn from someone else and you're building relationships. And yeah, I would say to people, yeah, you can work remotely 100%. But if you want to be intentional about your career, sometimes it's really helpful to go and be where the decision makers are so that they know who you are.
Absolutely. I think COVID has changed that. And I definitely understand the need for working remote and having the flexibility. But to your point, many a time these hallway conversations, meeting suddenly somebody in the cafeteria or in the elevator and just spending 30 seconds, uh, that networking is super important.
Yeah.
I never realized that until I was in different parts of the world in different roles. I traveled a lot and been in different countries, and not everybody picks up the phone and talks. So meeting face to face, having that, coffee in a Starbucks, or even meeting, hey, let's have lunch, or standing in the queue in the lunch.
Right.
In fact, standing in the queue in the lunch, getting, having a conversation with somebody in the office and opens new doors. And it happened to me personally when I was standing in one queue in one of the, food restaurants. But to the point, I think that is very important. And we are missing that because we're all sitting at home and trying to do the video. And that's why a lot of the companies are moving back into at least a flexible 2 day, 3 day work week. As long as you give the flexibility to the individuals, I think that flexibility is important. It's just not a very hard and fast, you have to be 3 days, but having the flexibility. But to your point, I agree with you, Greg. I think that networking is super important.
Yeah.
It has helped me, it opened new doors for me, it allowed me to take new roles, and it also helped me many times to problem solve. I did not understand risk management, for example, but I needed help. But I got that through a networking, not because I was told by my boss to go and speak to so and so person in risk management, for example. So you learn a lot through networking, and as you build your team around your networking team around, you can rely on them for all kinds of problem solving.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I
We
love
found
it.
that very helpful. I mean, we strongly advise everyone. We try to create forums. We try to do that informally and formally. But at the end of the day, it's on the individual to be able to do that. We can only create an environment for that.
Yeah. Well, and get a coach. Coach can help you accelerate your path.
Absolutely. I absolutely feel that. I think a coach is super important for every individual. Every leader needs a coach because no matter what, everyone has got strengths and weakness. Even though you have worked on a weakness, there's some other weakness which is there. And a weakness is based on a kind of roles you get into. So I have always felt that there was a need for a coach in our world. We have in our job life, we have had coaches for high performers. We
Yeah.
had coaches for people who needed help in a certain area. We had a very great leader who was very good in a lot of functions, but they needed a coach because they had a very one or two very deep areas to improve.
Yeah.
And they were a senior level exec, C suite level exec, and we had a coach. I mean, it really helped. So I think it definitely helps.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Yeah. Right on. I agree with you 100%. So I am so grateful that you took the time to chat with me today. I've learned a ton. I know that our listeners are going to soak this up. So much tremendous value in what you were sharing. I always like to end my conversations with folks I coach and the meetings that I run with an expression of gratitude. It was because it's good for us to hear it and receive it. So I want you to receive it. I am so grateful for you and for you taking the time to talk to me today. I feel like it's been my private mentoring session. So I really, really appreciate it. And I'll give you the final word. What's something you're grateful for or final message to our listeners?
Look, first of all, a big thank you to you, Greg, for inviting me. And my final message to the team is be open minded, learn new things, build your network, and absolutely be an empathetic leader. Today's world needs empathetic leader and leaders who are authentic. I think we lack that, and everywhere we are trying to ensure that we have got people who are empathetic, authentic leaders. So go strive for that.
That's it, man. That's it. Empathy. I love it. Thank you so much. And thank you to you for listening. This has been another awesome episode of Ultra Leadership with our guest, Sabby Ray. And we will see you next time. If you're enjoying Ultra Leadership, please take a minute and give us a review wherever you find your podcasts. And please stay in touch. Sign up for our Ultra Leadership newsletter at ultraleadership.com. Now, before you jump to your next meeting, I invite you to reflect on what you heard today. What stood out for you? What insight might you want to incorporate into your leadership practice? Until next time, remember, as a leader, you always have the power to shape the future and change lives. So go to the edge and push farther. Thanks for listening.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.